Yep. Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I'm Sydney Brown. Yes, folks, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube first. Videos drop every Monday and every Friday. Once again, videos drop right here on YouTube every Monday and every Friday at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media right here on YouTube. Podcast version of this program, the audio version for you simple folks at home. You can search for that at War on Anchor, which drops every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, the audio version drops every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. We're available on all podcast platforms. Make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, as our friend George Altman says, and we'll say it here, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.
That's going to be the secret word.
Very good.
Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.
Yes. And we are unapologetically fun. Lakeena, let's start off with some baseball. As of course, we are broadcasting live from Chicago. It was a good weekend for one team. The Chicago Cubs. We'll get to them in a few minutes, but I want to focus in on the Chicago White Sox. They did like I expected them to do. Of course, the makeup game was from the first series back in April, was made up on Friday. Of course, the White Sox split the doubleheader with the Kansas City Royals. The Royals took the second game on Saturday by the score of 5-1. But Sunday's game was a classic as the White Sox came from behind to defeat the Kansas City Royals. Thanks to Jose Abreu's heads-up play off a wild pitch, scoring the game-winning run at home plate. The play was challenged, it was upheld, and the Sox walked it off with a victory, splitting the four-game weekend series. Lakeena, a couple of things that stood out to me. One, Jose Abreu, his leadership, both on and off the field, should be talked about more than what people get credit for. Of course, he was injured in that collision in the first game of the doubleheader last Friday with Rozier of Kansas City. Rozier is now currently on the injured list for the Royals. Jose Abreu didn't play in the second game on Friday, but came back on Saturday, scored the only run of the game with a home run. And then, of course, what happened on Sunday, he got hit by a pitch in the bottom of the ninth inning in that comeback victory there. And then, of course, he scored the game-winning run off a wild pitch. Number two, especially during that game on Saturday, I noticed that a whole lot of White Sox players were pressing, especially Yermin Mercedes. Mm-hmm. But when you get down like they were on Saturday, even though they didn't come back to win that game, you cannot get it all back with one long swing in the back. You had to manufacture runs. You had to be aggressive, create chances on offense. And that's what happened on Sunday. Saturday, they didn't get it done, but Sunday they got it done. Yermin Mercedes had a good game with two hits, including the first hit of the bottom of the ninth inning, which created the opportunity for the Sox to win the game. So those are two things that stuck out to me with the White Sox series split last weekend against KC.
Well, like I said, I mean, we said it before, KC, even though they've kind of, tapered off a bit since their hot start earlier in the season, mm-hmm. They were going to still be fit, and they were. I mean, they're pitching, they're hitting, they still got some guys out there that can play. So, of course, the Royals are still going to be around for a little bit, to kind of give all the teams in the AL Central fits. Now, as far as the series is concerned, I mean, Abreu may or may not have been tagged. Who knows? I mean, people say he might have been tagged. Some people say that he wasn't. So that's a whole nother. That's a story for a whole nother podcast. But look, they split the series, because if they had lost, if the Sox had lost that game, that the Royals would have won the series. So the Sox were able to came back, I should say, and get the split. And so, look, I mean, they did what you're supposed to do. I mean, they got timely hitting. They got They got on base. They played They played short ball and long ball. Abreu made that smart play, going for the steal and that wild pitch. So I think he was able to get the fundamentals, if you will. I think that sort of helped the White Sox sort of keep themselves in that game, and it ended up splitting the series with the Royals. So I think, look, this is sort of one of those things where you never know what's going to happen when you play your divisional foes. They have the Twins, on Monday. They got they could kind of put put their hand, their foot in the throat of the Twins, if you will. So we'll see. I mean, look, you saw what the White Sox can do to win games, but then you also saw what the White Sox can do to lose games. So it's sort of a yin yang, and I don't want fans to freak out, but since they have so much expectations for this team this year, but. I think this is still a team that's sort of a work in progress. You have Mercedes is doing his thing. Abreu is doing his thing. Tim Anderson had some timely hitting too, so that helps. So, look, the pitching was pretty solid overall. I know Rodon didn't have the best start on Saturday, but you know what? I think if you're a White Sox fan, you're happy where you are right now.
Correction from what I said. Who's had the first hit at the ninth inning? You just brought him up, Tim Anderson. He actually had the first hit in the ninth inning to start off that rally for the White Sox. I want to talk about the play before Jose Abreu scored that game-winning run. It was German Mercedes who had that hit. He extended his strike zone, but he got the hit out to right field. And Whit Merrifield, who's their Royal second baseman, he played right field, and he played. Yerman Mercedes, not deep but shallow, and so he played the ball off a hop, and Yohan Moncada circled around third, and he attempted to score the game-winning run. Of course, he was thrown out at home plate. I don't know. I think the third base coach is Joe McEwen. I don't know if he put up the stop sign or not. I was trying to find the video. I didn't see it. If you saw something, Lakeena, regarding that is concerned, please let me know. But I thought it was a bad play for Yohan Moncada to try to score there. I get it. You try to get aggressive, but you got to know the situation. And Whit Merrifield played it perfectly. He threw out Moncada at home plate. I know Steve Stone on the White Sox broadcast pointed it out very sharply on Sunday. This is your second baseman playing right field. Merrifield doesn't have the greatest arm, but the defense that was called for there, he played the ball off a hop, and he threw it across to home plate. That was a great play. Now, if Joe McEwen put up the stop sign and Yohan Moncada ignored him, that's on Moncada. But if Joe McEwen gave Moncada the go-ahead to try to score, that was a bad call.
Yeah, I didn't see anything whether or not he got the stop sign or not and just passed it. But and look, hopefully those are not the type of things, the little things that kind of come back to bite you in the butt, because I think those are the type of things you could lose games that way. So I think they definitely need to work on that. I didn't see anything. I was trying to see that maybe he may have gotten the stop sign and he passed it. I haven't seen any replay of it anywhere. So maybe that just was miscommunication, in that instance. But I think look, these things happen. It's a long season. You're going to have these type of, lapses and, judgment. So I wouldn't freak out too much with it. Hopefully it doesn't become a habit. So I think he's okay. And they end up, scoring. So I think it went okay, I think. So I wouldn't freak out too much with that particular blunder, because, stuff like this is going to happen throughout the season.
And also a couple more other notes from Sunday's victory against the Kansas City Royals. One, Dylan Cease, and he had the greatest performance, but he definitely kept the White Sox in it. And so he had the chance to get the win, but of course the bullpen decided to give it up again, even though they have improved over the last few games. And number two, Jorge Soler, I believe it was in about the top of the fifth or the top of the sixth inning. He right before Dylan Cease was pulled, because Dylan Cease was starting to get fatigued and the pitch count was starting to pile up. He hit a massive, as we thought it was a home run. If you saw Dylan Cease's reaction, he said, "Oh, bleep." We won't say the word here, but if you saw the reaction on his face, he thought that he gave it up. And of course, because of the wind, thank goodness for the wind, Billy Hamilton, I believe, made the catch out there in
Yeah.
center field. That ball just died right on the center field warning track. And Jorge Soler, and I tweeted it out on Sunday, no soup for you, Mr. Soler. I
Mhm.
thought that ball was gone too. It took me back to, I don't know if you remember this, Lakeena, but it took me back to 2005. And of course, people said that the White Sox had the quote unquote worst September of a championship team. Remember those 2000 New York Yankees? They only won 3 games in September during that year, but they won the World Series. Thank you very much. The White Sox actually in September '05 started 7-0 before they quote unquote struggled. Even though they won the division, of course, they won the whole thing. But I remember watching a game against the Anaheim Angels, who they were defeating the ALCS. This was back, of course, during September, during the regular season. Vladimir Guerrero, who's now a Hall of Famer, his son's doing a hell of a job, by the way, for Toronto.
Mhm.
Vladimir Guerrero, if you guys watched his career, even through his early years with Montreal, when he hit the ball, it was so monstrous. But watching Vladimir, this is when he was with the Angels, and they were playing at Sox Park. Now I remember watching this on TV. Vladimir hit a ball about a mile. I thought this is going 30 rows deep. What ended up happening was it bounced off the wall. He ended up with a double. And I said Jorge Soler's out last
Mhm.
Sunday reminded me of Vladimir Guerrero's back with the Anaheim Angels back in September of '05 against the White Sox at Sox Park. I'm like, woof.
Mhm.
I thought Jorge Soler's that ball was gone off his bat. It was, but not far enough. And so, as we say all the time, Lakeena, it's the little things that wins and loses ball games in
Yeah.
baseball.
Yeah, I mean, like it's sort of one of those. I saw those plays, and it was just weird how the whole thing transpired. But like I said, I mean, like you had guys that stepped up. You had Andrew Vaughn step up, guys first career home run. You got Billy Hamilton doing some big things too. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens when and if Eloy and Robert can come back. That's going to be the key. So we'll look. I guess if you're Tony La Russa, that's kind of a good problem to have, I guess, because you got so much depth in that outfield. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see, if especially if Vaughn and Hamilton and guys like that continue to produce, and Manigault, does he have all the White Sox, fandom mad at him? Maybe now they're happy with him now. So hopefully they don't go back to being mad at him. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if how long that lasts. I mean, can they keep it up? Can Hamilton and Vaughn keep it up because of the fact that they're going to be doing this for a while? Maybe in one case the rest of the season, or if Robert can't come back. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, because that's what I'm focused on. That who can if Eloy and Robert can come back, where does that put guys like Vaughn and guys like Hamilton?
You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Browns. We talk White Sox baseball. We'll get to the Cubs in just a moment. I want to piggyback off your point about Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn is actually starting to hit the ball well over the last week and a half or so. We saw it in the series against Kansas City. He has a chance to hit his first home run. He did it a few days ago here in Chicago. And his play in the outfield, I'm actually liking it so far. I'm not saying he's going to win a Gold Glove out there, but excuse me, he's going to be okay in the outfield. This is what we expected from Eloy Jimenez before he injured himself stupidly toward the end of spring training. So, but going back to Vaughn, I like the way he's swinging the bat right now. He almost knocked one out the other day. He had a decent chance on Sunday, but I like the way Andrew Vaughn is playing right now. I think he's eventually going to be your future first baseman, but right now I like the way he's playing in the outfield right now.
Yeah, I think he actually play outfield. I think that he's already ahead of Eloy in that
Yeah.
front, right? He actually play outfield. So, I mean, look, it'll be interesting to see where he'll be if whenever Eloy does come back. I'm sure you're gonna have to keep him there because Eloy should be DHing. Just saying. I mean, if you want to avoid those type of injuries like he did, early in the season. So, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see what he does. I mean, hopefully he can keep it up. I mean, hopefully there's not going to be a lot of pressure on Vaughn to kind of not do too much. He's been doing his thing, and look, I think he's been, so far so good with him. He's made some big defensive plays. He's made some timely hitting. I mean, I would keep him in the outfield if or when Eloy comes back. I think you got to for your own
Hmm.
sanity. I think because you don't want to,
Yeah.
like I say, you don't want to avoid what happened in spring training with Eloy. So I think maybe if they folks need to kind of just maybe give him a break because he has not played a full year yet, Vaughn. So I think people need to
Hmm.
kind of like give him a break.
I agree with you there. And so we'll see what happens as the season goes along with Andrew Vaughn and some of the young guys on this team. Taking a look at the White Sox schedule for this week. They, as you mentioned earlier, they're at Minnesota for 3 games. Of course, you're listening to us on our podcast. Today is Tuesday, so Monday's game has already been played. And, of course, tonight's action, you'll have Lance Lynn going on the mound. And, of course, tomorrow afternoon, you'll have Lucas Giolito going against the Minnesota Twins. All 3 of the games are, of course, at Target Field. And, of course, the White Sox have an off day on Thursday. Of course, the next weekend, you'll have 3 games in the Bronx against the New York Yankees. Looking at that series, I think the good news is you'll avoid Garrett Cole. I think you may have to face Corey Kluber in that series. We're not sure. We'll see about that. But I kind of like where the White Sox are playing right now. Hopefully, they'll take 2 out of 3 for the Minnesota Twins. You take care of them first. I know you swept them here in Chicago last week, but hopefully you can take at least 2 out of 3 in Target Field, and then take your chances against the Yankees next weekend in the Bronx.
Yeah, I think that's sort of going to be the litmus test for this team, right? The Yankees have been playing a lot better lately. We'll get to them in a second, but they've been playing better, the Yankees have, and I think that's not going to be. Look, yes, you avoid Cole, but you still got. Actually, they're going to be playing Dylan Cease. Actually, they actually going to be playing Saturday. It's going to be, and it's going to be, Dylan Cease and Garrett Cole. So that will be a Saturday game on Saturday. So they don't avoid.
Oh, we won't get called. Oh, we're gonna.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
great.
Yeah. So yeah.
I hope that changes by the time we have our next broadcast.
We'll see. Well, I mean, we'll see. That could change. They may move it up a little bit, but we'll see what happens with that. But I think if you get at least win the series against New York, that's going to be a tough task because they're going to be at Yankee Stadium. Minnesota too. First things first. Don't go ahead because I'm sure Minnesota still feels that they still have a chance at the very least to make things interesting. So just don't look ahead. And I think, look, you're in a good place right now for the White Sox. Don't do any stupid things, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, they should be okay. Let's go over to the north side. The men in blue, they take care of business last weekend against the Detroit Tigers. They lose Saturday's game 9-8 in 10 innings, but they won Friday's game 4-2 and last Sunday's game in dominating fashion 5-1. Couple of things that stood out to me, Lakeena, is the starting pitching. Jake Arrieta came back from the injury list last Friday. He looked good. Craig Kimbrell had his 7th save of the season. And so the Cubs did enough just to win the game. Of course, last Saturday, the bats came out for the Cubs, but they just couldn't hang on as the Tigers won in extra innings. And, of course, last Sunday, they did enough to dominate the Tigers 5-1. Kyle Hendricks, this is the best he's looked all year. He had 8 innings. He gave up 8 hits, but he also struck out 8 as well. So I was going to bring up I think I brought up the question on this. I brought up the question on this show about a week or so ago. Do you skip him in the rotation and give him a quote unquote skip a start? And that can you see that if that would help him out? But he said no. what he did this past Sunday on the mound at Detroit. Hopefully it's an encouraging sign for him to turn things around.
Well, and like I said before, I think this is the time of year where we get to see the Kyle Hendricks that we know and love, and we saw that on Sunday. He gave him 8 hits, but you know what? They were able to kind of get out of some jams, and they had some defensive plays too. So I think that helped him and his confidence. They probably should have swept Detroit. Of course, the pitching, the middle relief pitching, kind of killed them there, and they were unfortunately, Kimbrell, got away from a little bit with the second base rule and such. It's all the second base rule after 9 innings. That's usually like it's one of those 2 full rules that you like it when it works for you, but then you hate it when it works against you. So that's unfortunately that's what happens with that particular rule. But look, they were able to come back and Hendricks dominated. They were able to win that game and win the series. And look, this is sort of when they're still right there in the NL Central, I should say. So that's they're kind of right there. They have a tough 4-game series against Washington. And then after that, this weekend, they got the Cardinals. They got to go at St. Louis. So this is kind of where we're going to see what the Cubs are made of. Can they and they're still right there. No one's running away from that division. St. Louis lost their series against the Padres. The Brewers have struggled lately. So the Reds are kind of up and down, what Reds team you're going to get. So I think this is sort of the thing where if guys are starting to come back from injuries, we can kind of see this team sort of like claw their way in that NL Central, which is still very much up for grabs. So, look, I think if you're a Cubs fan, considering everything that you went through a few weeks ago, where you're at now, you got to be feeling pretty good.
Hopefully you can make hay if you're the Chicago Cubs. So, like you mentioned, the schedule for this week, you have a big 4-game series against the Washington Nationals. Of course, as this recording, the John Lester game has already been played. We'll give you our Cisco and Ebro review coming up on our next episode. But you have a 4-game series at home, and then you go and play the Cardinals. This will be your first real true test of the year against your division foe. And so, like you said, the Cubs are getting some pieces back. And let's see if they can put it together completely. Like I said, the starting pitching was encouraging over the weekend at Detroit. Let's see if the offense can help them out for this coming week's game. So the Cubs have the opportunity in front of them. I'm not saying they're going to blow everybody away because, like you said, the NL Central is mediocre, and it looks like it's probably going to stay that way all year. But it's an opportunity for the Cubs to right the ship and perhaps hopefully stay over 500 for a while, but we'll see what happens. As they always say, the games are usually played on the field, not in the press.
If we be right all the time. So if it played in the press, I mean, we'd be millionaires right now if we had a dollar. We could play these games to the press. But yeah, I mean, I think like I said before, I mean, considering where the Cubs were, fans were kind of down on themselves. You can kind of look at the team were down on themselves. Now you're like, okay, yeah, they kind of went up and down, but you know what though? Considering where everyone else is in that division, you're in a pretty good spot.
Mm-hmm. You're in a pretty good spot.
Absolutely. All right. So, what impressed you this weekend? I mean, there were a lot of interesting things that happened this weekend in the MLB.
The Atlanta Braves, they had a chance to sweep away the Milwaukee Brewers on the road. Of course, Milwaukee held on in the series finale on Sunday, winning 10-8. They were up 8-0, but the Braves came back, scoring 7 runs to the top of the 8th inning. They made things interesting, but Milwaukee just held on to win. The Yankees had a chance to sweep away the Baltimore Orioles. They came up short during last Sunday's game, but the Yankees bats are starting to come alive. Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, and Clint Frazier, those bats are starting to heat up for the Yankees. I don't want to look too far ahead, but the White Sox have a tough task on their hands coming up next week in the Bronx, as we mentioned earlier. So those are at least a couple things that stood out to me from the MLB over the last weekend.
For me, it was the NL West. I mean, that West division is going to be – it's going to come down to the wire, I think. And I know it's still very early. We're not even halfway through the season yet, but I think it's starting to look like, San Fran, they've been up and down lately. The Padres, they swept their series against the Cardinals. The Dodgers are having a lot of injury issues, so they've had their struggles. So it's probably going to be between those three. Now, like I said, I think the Giants are going to, filter out. I think it's going to end up being between the Padres and the Dodgers in the end. So hopefully, Dodgers get a lot of their guys back, and hopefully they can, get back to kind of being that dominant Dodgers team like we all saw. Another thing for me is like the NL East. I mean, it's just like the Phillies are having problems because apparently they can't field. There's like, Joe Girardi is about to lose his mind over it. So, that's a whole nother thing. The Mets have lost 3 in a row. You talked about the Braves earlier. The Marlins are trying to hang on, and so are the Nationals. They've had their struggles. So that NL East, and the next to the NL Central is pretty. It's pretty. Yeah, there's a log jam there, safe to say. So I don't know. Houston has looked good. They've won 6 in a row. I should say, as of this recording.
They're quietly getting back up there as one of the top teams in the American League.
They're hitting. They're pitching well lately. They've been hitting very well lately. So. Actually, I would say that top 3 in the West. I mean, the A's have been playing well. The Mariners are hanging on to. They have a young, scrappy team. So look, I think
They beat Justin Bieber on Sunday.
Yes, they did. Justin Bieber. I'm sure he loves that.
Oh, sorry, Shane Bieber. Good grief.
Well, no, well, look,
No pun intended, folks.
well, look, I mean, I'm sure he can. I'm sure. Look, he'll probably take being called Justin. I think maybe. I don't know. We got to ask Shane that. But, but anyway. But still, I mean, on a serious note, though, I mean, look, the West and the AL East. I mean, though, those are like there's going to be a big battle at least for the next month or so.
Yeah, going back to the AL West, I did check out some of the other series. Of course, Oakland took care of Minnesota, winning 2 out of 3 in Target Field. Of course, Saturday's game they gave away. I watched the majority of that game. Of course, you mentioned the Astros, but the Anaheim Angels looked good at Boston over the weekend, and they took the series finale last Sunday 6-5. Given the way that the Angels have been in the news lately, the way they quote unquote handled the Albert Pujols release, he's signed by the Dodgers to a minor league deal. By the way,
I called it. I called
yeah,
that.
you did.
I did. Yeah.
You did. So.
And they need
we'll see what happens there. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But Anaheim is starting to look good. Will I take them as seriously as a playoff contender? That remains to be seen. So the AL West is very interesting right now. I think you could say it's a little bit better than the NL Central.
Well, yeah, I think pretty much every and the NL East too. I mean, that doesn't look it's a pretty good division either. But look, I think the East is probably the best. I think the AL East. I mean, look, the Red Sox are hanging on. The Blue Jays, my God, I love that team. The Vlad Jr.
I told you they're my AL wildcard winner.
I mean, he's doing things that his dad didn't do, and even his dad's actually admitted that. If you look through his Twitter,
yeah,
so
Vlad Jr.
Yeah, it's just crazy what he's been doing. Of course, we talked about the Yankees too. Probably let that game slip away, but on Sunday, but. The Rays are hanging on. They've won 4 in a row as of this recording. So the East is looking really good, which we all thought it would be.
Yeah, as we talked about before, things are getting competitive around baseball, and things are starting to heat up. And we'll see who separates themselves from the pack as we have a bunch of key series for you guys to keep your eye on this week. I'll just give a couple out here. Of course, the New York Mets will take on the Atlanta Braves down in Atlanta. Of course, you have the White Sox and the Twins and the National and the Cubs from Wrigley for our Chicago listeners and viewers. The New York Yankees will travel down to Texas to play in their new Globe Life Field down in Arlington. The Indians will face the Angels in Anaheim. This is going to be a great series. I'm looking forward to this one. The Arizona Diamondbacks and the Los Angeles Dodgers from Dodger Stadium this week for a big 3-game series.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun right now with that. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this will, like I said before, I don't think any of these series like make or break, but this is sort of like the opportunity for teams to kind of like, establish themselves and in some cases separate themselves. So I think all you can ask for at this point is to just be encouraged by some of these teams. Cause like I said before, in a lot of these divisions, no one's walking away from it, which is probably, if you're baseball, that's a good thing. So, the fact that these divisions are still competitive, over a month in, I think if you're baseball, you'll take it.
Yes, if you baseball, you'll take it. So we'll see what happens this upcoming week. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown as we are now transition over to talk a little basketball. The Chicago Bulls finished their season at 31 wins and 41 losses in a short 72-game season. They split their weekend games. They lost at Brooklyn last Saturday, but they won against the Milwaukee Bucks in front of the 25% capacity of fans at the UC 118-112. Most of the big stars for the Bucks did not play. Zach LaVine did not play for the Chicago Bulls, but they looked good. It was important for them to get the win. I know some people will disagree with me on that. We'll get into that, I'm sure, in just a couple of minutes. But I was originally not going to watch the broadcast live, Lakeena, but in a way, I'm glad I did. Not Neil Fung. Congrats on your retirement of last season. But Stacey King and Adam Amin both have done a great job for NBC Sports Chicago all season long. Shout out to our guy Jason Goff. Hopefully, we'll have him on this program soon. And of course, Kendall Gill and Real Purdue are doing the Bulls pre- and post-game live for NBC Sports Chicago. It was more of a reflection broadcast on Sunday. I actually enjoyed that broadcast only because we knew that it was over for the Bulls. But realistically, you're starting to see that Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Evans, so you have hope as we talked about all season long, Lakeena, with that, especially with that Nikolai Vujicic trade at the end of March during the trade deadline. As we told you guys, this is the first of hopefully many moves that this new Bulls management team will make. Now, the players that played on the floor last Sunday, some of them will be here, some of them will not be here. I know we'll get into more in our next episode. We'll give you some synopsis right now. But you have to be encouraged by what the Bulls will look like in the future starting next year. But you actually have realistic hope this time instead of the last few years hoping maybe let's see what happens if we can get lucky and all this other foolishness. There's realistic expectations and actual optimism to look forward to for this Bulls team heading to 2021-22 season next year.
I think we should be encouraged. I think Bulls fans everywhere should be encouraged. I know some people were disappointed because after the Vucevic trade, after some of the other trades they made, they got rid of Gaffer, they got rid of Carter Jr. People said, "Oh, we should be a number 3 or 4 seed in the East." I mean, I don't know what basketball have they been watching or what team have they been watching the last few years, because this team it was not a top 3 or 4 team. They in the East they weren't, even with the Vucevic trade. So look, Zach unfortunately, had to sit out because of safety protocols. Garrett Temple, was hurt for a few weeks. And if you listen to the comments of some of these players and the coaches, if you heard, Billy Donovan's comments, if you saw Zach LaVine's comments, he said he wants to be here. He wants to, invest in the future. He has invited, Patrick Williams and Kobe White to work out with him during the off season so they can get better. And they can do that now. People forget that they couldn't do that kind of stuff because of the pandemic last year. They couldn't travel. They couldn't really practice. People forget that. So I think when I hear people say, when I listen to some of the sports radio stations, the 2 sports radio stations here, they say, well, they should have been a 3 or 4 seed. I mean, look, they really couldn't do anything, especially once, Zach had to sit out. That's when everything kind of started, kind of falling apart. So again, listening to all the encouragement, maybe if you saw Vucevic's comments, if you, like I said, if you saw Zach's comments and that young, he wants to come back next year. So, hopefully they'll be able to get, Troy Brown Jr. and, Daniel Tice. I mean, I'm hoping that they can, that they'll be able to keep some of these guys because, look, I think we can safely say that Felicio and Denzel and Lori probably are all going to be gone. Bye-bye. Away. Where are the going away parties at? Let's throw a go away party. Say bye-bye to them. They're going to have some money in the cap. We'll see if they hit gold with the top, if they end up in the top 4, they get that pick from Orlando. So, look, a lot of things can happen, and I think, look, the good news is that, look, AK said, look, I'm not finished. They've both he and Mark Evans have said that. We're not finished. We still got a lot of moves to make, so we'll see what they can do.
What you like from this Bulls management team, we talked about it all season long, Lakeena. Bad boys move in silence. I don't want to hear from them, nothing personal, but unless they're actually close to making a deal or actually made a deal, that's where I want to hear from them, and that's fine by me. I don't want them to go attention whoring, excuse my language, but go around just talking just to be talking. That does nobody any good. And so I like the approach that this new management team is giving right now. You're not going to hear from them until they actually done something, okay? Now, whether the moves they have made will work or not, they'll be judged through time. But as I mentioned before, there are some realistic expectations for this Bulls team next year, and if you have hopeful optimism for next year, that's real. So embrace that, folks. And this new management team was brought in here to turn things around. They're on an early process of doing that. Whether they get the top 4 pick or not, I'm not banking on it. But they happen to get it, so be it. I heard one person earlier today said they should trade that pick if it ends in the top 4. They may have to if you train for a Giannis or a Kevin Durant type player, a player of that caliber. But I'm not banking on them getting that number 4 pick. But if it happens, so be it. But there's still, as you mentioned, there's still a lot of work to be done. And going through this roster, there's going to be at least 3 to 4 players that are not going to be here next year. Probably more, but at least 3 to 4. But we'll go through the roster right now. Daniel Tice, I talked about him on the show before. He's the only person on the roster, period, especially the only big man on the roster that brought some intensity on the defensive end, especially
Hmm.
in the paint. That's something the Bulls have been lacking for years.
Yeah.
And Daniel Tice gave that to you. I know he extended his range and shot a couple 3-point shots, which is cool, but I need him to play defense and control the play, and he did that.
Yeah.
And I'm just worried that the market is going to slightly overpay him due to the Bulls' salary cap situation. I know that it's supposed the salary cap for all these teams is supposed to be above $123 million. I know the Bulls are slated to have at least $23 million over the cap without Thaddeus Young's partial guarantee. If they give into Young's partial guarantee, they'll only have $16 million under the cap, with salary under the salary cap this summer. So the future of the Bulls will ride what happens with that Young's contract.
Mhm.
I know you say you wanted to be back, but that's going to be a tough call, and they may affect some other players that this new management team want to keep, including Daniel Tice. I don't want to say I'm prepared for him to go, but it may end up being in that situation. I hope not, but Daniel Tice is very much needed on this team. And if you haven't been watching over the last few weeks, then you just don't know what you're watching, yeah, and what we've been talking about. It just goes beyond deaf ears. But I hope they bring Daniel Tice back, and I hope they bring Garrett Temple back too. I looked at the list during the postgame show on Sunday. He's a free agent too. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
a possibility both those guys may not come back.
the good news is with Temple is that he loves it here. So he said that I think he probably would stay for the minimum or a very small salary. So I think Temple would come back. Now the Tice say, look, I want it into existence. Please come back, Daniel Tice. Please come back, Daniel Tice. I mean, I'm already willing that into existence. So like I will not have that defeatist attitude, Sid. I'm willing it into existence. Daniel Tice is coming
Like I
back to
said,
the Bulls.
I'll be the first one to say that I'm wrong if he's brought back. I'm not saying I don't want him back, but we gotta look at the business side of it. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it
Trust
is.
me, I'll be the first one to say I am wrong. I'll be happy, just like every other Bulls fan. Okay,
Well, we know that
that's where I'm coming from.
Well, we know AK is a good salesman, so he's got that charisma. So I think he might, I have no doubt he'll probably try to sweeten the pot a little bit, give him a lot of incentives and whatnot. But both him and Temple, so it won't count against the cap. He's pretty smart with that. So I'm willing to bet on he can get both those guys back. I hope they bring Troy Brown Jr. back. I think he is a guy that you need that kind of a guy with his size and a guy like him to kind of be that guy. Look, I know people want try to get Lonzo Ball. I know some people say if they get the number 4 pick, look, you've got a pretty good class, so I wouldn't want to trade that number 4 pick unless you give me a James Harden or Giannis. You're not gonna. No, I'm not. No. You're on mute, Mister. I'm declining your call. So. Look, I think the good news is that this guy's definitely going to be a limit. He's, both AK and Evers are going to have a lot of choices of direction they want to go. I'm sure they're going to want to try and at least contend in the East next year. So I'm thinking that they are thinking maybe let's see if we can get another piece. If we're looking at the top 4 pick, okay, cool. If not, okay, let's see if we can get a sign and trade for Lowry. So if we can get another pick. So. There are lots of choices for the Bulls to do and lots of directions they can go. And look, I think if you read, Billy Donovan's comments and some of the players' comments, I think they're ready, especially now that since they're actually going to have a normal off season now where they'll be able to work out together, they'll be able to practice and whatnot. So I think if you're a Bulls fan, I know some people are freaking out about it or you're having their own little, living in their own little world when it comes to the Bulls. But I think people need to just kind of chill, trust the process. I know I don't know nobody likes to hear that, but I think just need to trust the journey. I should say trust the journey. That's probably the best way to go.
Yeah, all options are on the table, Lakeena. And I was thinking about this last night. Hopefully that AK and Mark Eversley don't repeat the same sins as the last regime, Gar Pax, falling in love too much with their players that they didn't want to trade them or overvalue them, trying to jip another franchise. And that model does not work. It'll never work. So those scouts and GMs across the league see the same stuff that we see. And so you cannot fool anybody. I'm not saying this new management team is going to try to fool anybody. I don't get that sense here either. But all options are on the table for this new Bulls management team coming up this summer. I want to focus in on rookie Patrick Williams. He had a good year, And listening to the broadcast from Sunday, Stacey King pointed this out perfectly. Just paraphrasing here, that he wanted to see Patrick Williams work on his offensive game this summer. And I agree with him. I think the defense is going to come. Remember, folks, he's only 19 years old. He'll be 20 by the time training camp starts next September, early October. I want to see Patrick Williams, especially with his size. This is Stacey King from the broadcast on Sunday. I want to see Patrick Williams work on his game this summer, especially in the post where he's 6'9". He can take guys that are 6'5" and under defending him. And I said, yeah, I could see Patrick Williams not become a 20-point scorer overnight. I know some people could compare him to Kawhi Leonard. Maybe he'll eventually get there, but right now he still has to work on his offensive game. The defense is going to improve. I'm hopeful in that, but the offensive game, he needs to work on this summer. I don't know if the NBA is going to have a summer league this year, but like you mentioned, Lakeena, we're going to have a normal off season for the summer for the Chicago Bulls. Remember, when Patrick Williams got drafted, it was right before Thanksgiving, and then a couple weeks later, he had to come to Chicago, play in a couple preseason games, and then on the week of Christmas, your season started. So he really didn't have a chance to get acclimated to the league, along with the other rookies as well, because we were going through a pandemic at the time, so which was understandable. But you're going to have a normal off season, build up your weight, build up your body, and then work on your game. Now, I expect Patrick Williams to make a big jump from this past season to next season.
I agree. I think people need to remember, too, he's only 19. He's only 19. Mm-hmm. This is probably the most basketball he's ever played. So I think people need to kind of like just chill the respect to, oh, well, he had a bad year. Like, no, he didn't. Considering the circumstances, he did not. And I will not fight, but I will defend him to anyone who tries to pull that crap and say that, well, he's been, this guy, Halliburton's doing this and this guy's doing that. Look, people need to remember he's only 19. Look, he have another growth rate. He can be 6'11". So, he hasn't stopped growing yet, and I'm sure they're gonna have a normal off season. I'm sure he can probably add some muscle to him. Get maybe 10 pounds of muscle. Just imagine him. And if he does grow another couple of inches, I mean, just imagine how much of a beast he could be. So I think, look, we're gonna have a normal off season. We're gonna have a normal workouts and whatnot. And people, and like you said, Sid, people forget that it was right before Thanksgiving that he got drafted. They started the season not too long after that. So I think people need to kind of stop kind of like just get out of their skis and just say, nothing was normal last year. Nothing was. So I think people need to kind of just give some of these teams and players a mulligan and some of these rookies a mulligan because of the fact that nothing was normal last year.
Yep, nothing was normal. Did you mention this guy's name earlier, Christian Feliciano? I think you said goodbye to him too.
Bye. Look, 4 years and $32 million. That's what his contract was. 4 years, $32 million. I mean, just imagine. I mean, he's made like, I'm sure he's probably gonna get a similar contract to somebody else because someone's gonna be crazy enough to do that because there are some teams out there that are going to do that. So look, like I said, I'm throwing Felicio, Denzel. Maybe Denzel ends up, coaching with his brother over at Loyola, his older brother Drew. Laurie. We'll see what happens with Laurie. I mean, does somehow AK and Eversley, do they somehow do a sign and trade with him? Do they maybe, try to, just let him go? I'm sure they're going to try to get something for him. I'm sure they tried to do it in the trade deadline. They couldn't find any takers.
Because he's a restricted free agent this summer. I'm talking about Laurie.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that I'm sure they're going to have a couple of tricks up their sleeves. So, bye, Felicio. Bye, Denzel. Bye, Laurie. I'll bring some cake to your going away parties. Bye.
Before we wrap up, I just found it interesting during Sunday night's our Bulls broadcast, both Stacey King and Adam and me, especially Stacey. Every time Felicio had the ball, Stacey King was cheering for him. Felicio, make a shot. I don't think he made a shot, but I found it interesting. Sure, both of those guys knew that Felicio is not going to be a Bull next season. So they were. Stacey King was having fun with that. I was chuckling and laughing a little bit. So I just find it to be interesting.
I'm gonna miss those comments though from Stacey. I mean, he tried to make Felicio look good. Look, even if Stacey can't make you look good, then I think you're having big problems.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, so let's take a 20 here and, take a timeout. Still got a lot to do. We're going to talk about the NBA and, of course, the preview of the playing games. We'll talk about some of the other stuff that happened over the weekend as comes to sports media and also some big media news. Give a couple of shout outs to some folks and talk about the Basketball Hall of Fame, on which some folks should sort of learn what that means. What else are we talking about, Sid?
Yes. Yeah, no, you pretty much covered it. We have a couple of nuggets for you from the sports media world. Of course, we'll get into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And I kind of want to touch on the Bears, even though we couldn't see as much from the mini camps this past weekend. I want to touch on something that kind of bothered me. That's the best I could put it.
Well, also we're gonna tell folks that there are no Waffle Houses here in this far up north. One of the Bears rookies was a little, I'm not upset, but he was kind of like he didn't realize that there were no Waffle Houses up here this far up north. I mean, I don't know where he got that from, but we'll talk about
Google Map, folks. Google Map.
We'll talk about that coming up next. We got a lot to talk about and more. So you listen to Second City Sports along with Cindy Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. We'll see you on the flip side.
Welcome back to the second half of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, first right here on YouTube at War Media. Video drops every Monday and Friday. Once again, the video drops every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can find our podcast at War on Anchor, which drops every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday, the audio version drops at War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. We're available on all podcast platforms. Just type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. And you can go to our website, wearerigoradio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Let's kick off the second segment, Lakeena. We're going to the broader NBA. The regular season has concluded. The play-in tournament games for both the Western and the Eastern Conference starts tonight. Lakeena, taking a look at the schedule for tonight's games at 5:30. Both games will be seen on TNT tonight at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's the Charlotte Hornets traveling to Indiana to face the Pacers in the 9-10 matchup. And then in prime time at 8 o'clock, we'll have the Washington Wizards, the number 8 seed, taking on the Boston Celtics, the number 7 seed. Lakeena, before we give our predictions of these games, what did you think about the NBA as a whole over the last weekend? There was a little drama, but not too much, because we pretty much knew what we were going to see as far as seeding is concerned, going back to our last episode.
Yeah, the seedings hadn't been finalized yet, so we knew the teams that were going, but we just didn't know what order. So, fortunately, the Washington got the 8 seed, which considering where they were earlier this season, is basically, especially Beal and Westbrook and all the things he's done, they've stepped up and now they're back in the playoffs. They got to go at Boston, they've had their struggles. Charlotte, they've been kind of like consistently right there all season. Also Indiana too. The way it works is that whoever wins those 8-9 matchups, that winner will face the 2 seed. And the loser will face the winner of the 10 versus 11, and the winner of that game, they will be the 8 seed. So it's all types of weird seeding. But I think this will get people invested into perhaps maybe watching basketball near the end of the season, because by that time, guys are sitting their guys, and guys have their G League guys out there. So that's why in some cases some of the seeding was a little bit off. But look, I think these two games, especially in the Eastern Conference, the play-ins, I think these should be a lot of fun. I think Charlotte's sort of one of those teams. They're kind of like the Bulls in a lot of ways. They're very scrappy. They're sort of like down and dirty. Indiana has kind of like quietly been playing pretty well. But you never know what Indiana team you're gonna get. So this could be one of those games where I think who wants it more, and I think that's going to be sort of the key here. And I think that this should be an interesting game too. Also, say they were Washington and Boston. There are already people there saying that in Boston that maybe Brad Stevens probably could be gone or should be gone, especially.
I'm one of those people.
Especially what the Wizards have been doing. We'll see if Bradley Beal, hopefully he'll be 100% or near 100% so that he can kind of help out Westbrook and the two of them, together with the Wizards. Hopefully, who knows? Those two teams have had their battles in the playoffs, so this will be a very interesting game and very contrasting styles. So who's going to be able to force, the issues in some of those in both these games. So I'm looking forward to seeing how both these teams, all four of these teams, I should say, not how these two games transpire tonight.
Going back to that Washington-Boston matchup, Lakeena, for the Celtics, Marcus Smart is out with an injury. If I'm correct, he's out with an injury, so that's going to be huge for Boston. So I think the Wizards can exploit that absence there, especially as you mentioned with Bradley Beal coming back. How much can Russell Westbrook do? I don't know, but this is a prime time spot for him and his Wizards. So as you mentioned, they made a late season charge and it worked. So to get them this opportunity, I want to take the Wizards, Lakeena, because they are the hot team right now. But something tells me that Boston is going to do just enough to get by. So for this game, I'm going with Boston. Now going to the first game with Charlotte in Indiana. I watched that the second to regular season finale game for the Pacers against the Lakers on Saturday. The Lakers had something to play for. The Pacers did show up, but they just don't have enough. Like Karis LeVert, we talked about him all season, Lakeena. He had the health scare. Thank goodness he's okay. He used to be with Brooklyn. Now he was traded to the Pacers. He's the go-to guy for Indiana. I like Domantas Sabonis, the one-time All-Star from last season. But like you said, I don't know which Pacers team is going to show up. And so I do not have my full confidence in them, even though they're at home. I know there are going to be a little bit more fans in the stands as the playoffs get underway this upcoming weekend. But going back to the Pacers Hornets game, I just cannot trust the Pacers to play a full 48-minute game. They're going to battle you, but I'm with you. I don't know which Pacers team I'm going to get. Going back to Charlotte, they still have pieces, even though LaMelo Ball is back, even though I think he still should win the Rookie of the Year. But Gordon Hayward's out, but you still have scary Terry Rozier. He's been through the playoff wars before. You have Miles Bridges, who's been one of the best surprises in the league this year. And so I kind of like Charlotte here. So I'm taking – this was a no-brainer for me. I'm taking Charlotte in the first game, and I'm taking Boston in the second game.
Yeah, see, I think Charlotte will do just enough to win that game. Like I said, I don't trust the Pacers, so I don't know which Pacers team we're going to get. Are we going to get the Pacers team that pulled off some upsets in the East, or are we going to get the Charlotte, the Pacers team that got blown out by the Bulls earlier this season? So when they still had their, had that group of players with the Bulls. So I don't know, but I'm going to pick Charlotte. I'm going to pick Washington, though. I think Westbrook, wants to try to take this opportunity and try to run with it as far as he can. So if he has to literally take the team on his back, which he has done. So I'm picking Charlotte and Washington for these two Eastern Conference games. Now we go west here. Some good ones here. You got San Antonio and Memphis. That's going to be the first game on ESPN. That's at 6:30 tomorrow night. And also you got Golden State and the Lakers. I'm sure Adam Silver was probably somewhere like banging his head on his desk, that he got this matchup in the one of the play-ins. It'll be Steph versus LeBron. Steph, you got to commend. Look, we got to give Steph a shout out for what he's done. He clinched the scoring title. He joins MJ as the only player ages 33 and older to win the scoring title. He also joins Jordan and Wilt and Kareem as the only players to have multiple scoring titles, MVPs, and championships. But I don't think that's going to be enough. I think the Lakers, they're on a mission. I think they got all their guys back. I think the Lakers will win this game. I think Wilson goes into play the winner of the San Antonio Memphis game. I have no clue what's going to happen. This is sort of one of those coin flip games, right? I mean, look, San Antonio. I mean, look, they didn't have Pop, this weekend because he was at the Hall of Fame. So, but he'll be back. Memphis, John Morant, he's going to get his first, taste of playoff experience. So we'll see how.
Remember, they were in the play-in tournament last year in the bubble. They lost to Portland in the last game before the playoffs.
Yeah, they did. So I'm sure this is going to be seeing his opportunity there too. So I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be one of those toss-ups. I don't know where to go. Where do you think?
Going back to the first game between Memphis and San Antonio, I know it's a home game for the Grizzlies. You mentioned it is a toss-up, but I'm giving the edge to the Spurs only because of their head coach, Greg Popovich. As we talked about even during the All-Star break, Lakeena, we had our All-Star break mid-season show. San Antonio, for some reason, even though they let go of LaMarcus Aldridge right after the All-Star break, they still have enough players on their roster to make sure that they are competitive. You had to give head coach Greg Popovich major credit for that. You still have Rudy Gay. You still have Walker, the young veteran, and you still have some of the other guys like Patty Mills, who's been on their championship teams in recent memory. So you still have key veterans that they know how to get it done when it's time to get it done. Memphis, John Moran has been an exciting young talent all year long. I know you have Jonas Valanciunas, the former Toronto Raptor. I know he finished the year top 5 in rebounds in the league this year. So, and I know they have Dylan Brooks over there as well. So Memphis has a nice squad. They're still young, and they still need a couple more big pieces. But if I had to make a prediction, which I will, I'm going with San Antonio. It may be an upset on paper, but it won't be that much of an upset if the Spurs win it. So I'm going with San Antonio in the first game.
What about Warriors and Lakers?
It's going to come down to the role players for the Warriors. Steph Curry can only do so much. What will Draymond Green do? What will Kim Bazemore do? What will Andrew Wiggins do? Whether some of the other young guys will do, especially if Steph Curry struggles, who's going to step in and step up for the Warriors to take on that scoring load? Who's going to help out Steph Curry? We just don't know. Will it be a competitive game? Yes. But on the flip side for the Lakers, they still have nicky-nacky injuries right now. Will LeBron James and Anthony Davis, can they get through a game without being banged against the wall, so to speak? Will they get through a game without being nicked up? That's the question. I know Dennis Schroeder returned on Sunday in their regular season finale game at New Orleans. He looked okay. Let's see if he can step up. Let's see about Alex Caruso, Taylor Horton-Tucker if he decides to get some action. So I think the Lakers have enough, as long as they don't suffer any more setbacks in terms of injuries, and have the Lakers winning this game. I think Steph Curry will try to go off, but I don't trust those role players to step in and help Steph Curry. One of them decides to step up. The many names I just mentioned a moment ago, the Warriors can't pull off the upset, but I just don't get that sense that someone's going to help out Steph Curry. So I'm going with the Lakers in the second game.
That's how I feel about it. I think the Lakers, they have more role players that will contribute. So I think that they'll do just enough to win that game for them. And look, I mean, Steph, I'm afraid that Steph might have wore himself out because remember, he is 33 and look, I'm sure, he practices that. That's part of his ritual, practicing all those shots, but eventually those shots are not going to fall. And I think that's good. LeBron and them, I think they're on a mission. I think they're going to be well rested. And I think they're saving their energy for the playoffs. Now, as far as the Spurs and Memphis, look, I think Memphis got a little bit of a taste of it, even though it wasn't really technically a play. It was more of a play-in. It wasn't really the playoffs yet. I think they got the taste of it. I think they're young. They're hungry. I think he wants to kind of put himself off into a different level. So it's going to be close, but I'm going to pick Memphis just because I think that they've this is sort of a young, scrappy team. They got a little small sliver of it, and I think they want to get that full playoff experience. So we'll see. Should be all four of these games should be a lot of fun to watch, and I think the excitement is there. So the playoffs are starting, kids.
Yes, the playoffs should be fun. The NBA playoffs will start Saturday, May 22nd. During our next episode of Second City Sports Weekend Edition, we'll have our NBA playoff preview show with some exciting surprise guests and analysts. We will not name them here. You have to wait just like everybody else. So stay tuned for that in our next episode. It should be and will be a whole lot of fun. Lakeena, let's move over to the class of 2020 for the Basketball Hall of Fame as
Hmm.
the ceremony took place this past Saturday. Of course, the late Kobe Bryant was enshrined into the Hall of Fame. Michael Jordan gave a speech along with Kobe's widow, Vanessa Bryant, and of course, Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett were inducted as well. Did you get a chance to catch any of the ceremonies? If so, what was your thoughts on it?
I did. I did. I was actually able to listen and watch the speeches. I mean, Kevin Garnett's speech was really cool. It was actually short. He only kept it to like not even 9 minutes, which I would thought I would thought maybe he would have talked for a little bit longer. But like he covered all the bases. He thanked Chicago for help, getting this game to a different level. He thanked
Even though he was born and raised in South Carolina,
yeah,
folks.
go figure, right? So
Even
I
some
think
folks in Chicago don't want to hear that, but
also, yeah, also too, he thanked Ronnie Fields, one of his teammates at Farragut when he got here
mhm.
to Chicago. He gave him his props. He gave, of course, Minnesota and, God rest his soul, the late great Flip Saunders, who kind of helped get his game to
Yeah.
a different level and got to where he is. And look, he's still the all-time leading scorer in games, points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals in Minnesota. He still holds the record.
Mhm.
So he's the only player to lead a current franchise in all those categories. So that's an impressive feat in itself. So he was great. Tim Duncan's speech was actually really good. He doesn't like to speak in public. So
Mhm.
that's probably the most he's ever spoken in public. So, that was nice to see there. He and Kareem are the only players to have 25,000 points, 15,000 rebounds, 3,000 blocks. The second player in history to win a title with three different decades. If people forget
Yeah.
that, so that
Yeah.
that was great to see, and also great. His speech was great too. Kobe, his wife Vanessa. I can only imagine how she was able to keep it together. But she did, and look, she's no pushover. She's a very strong woman. She's college educated, so
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up doing more speaking engagements down the line as her younger girls get older.
Mhm.
But also, let's also remember too that there were other people who lost family members during that horrible
Yes.
tragic helicopter crash. A couple of guys lost their wives, and one of them lost a wife and a daughter. One, two young people lost both their parents and their younger sister. So let's keep those folks in our thoughts and prayers too, not just Vanessa and her girls, but also to the other
Mhm.
people that lost loved ones there. But going back to the ceremony, Rudy Tomjanovich, I'm so glad he got his due finally, because I
Mhm.
know some people say, oh, because Jordan was retired and Houston was look, somebody had to win those championships while that was
Yeah.
happening. So I'm glad that Pop and Eric Spoelstra and Doc and some of the other coaches lobbied for him to get in. I'm happy for Eddie's son, God rest his soul too. His
Mhm.
son Scott, says a great speech. Kim Mulkey, who if she had her way, she would have went on and on, all her accomplishments, both as a college player. The girl with the pigtails from Louisiana that they call her way back when, I'm sure she's gonna do great things. And now she's back at home, near where her kids are at LSU. I'm sure she's gonna do great things there, as she's done with Baylor,
Mhm.
winning 3 championships there, and won the first women's championship at La Tech, her alma mater. So just congrats to everyone. Also to Mike Breeden and Michael Wilbon, both deserving, as media contributors. So just great all
Yes.
around. We'll talk about this year's class in a bit, but what was your favorite
Mhm.
favorite moment, Sid?
I didn't get a chance to catch the whole ceremony, but I did read excerpts from the speeches. Of course, Tim Duncan's was short. I did catch some of that, and he had thanked everybody from Coach Greg Popovich to David Robinson and everybody else. And so I have actually a question to ask you about Tim Duncan. And I'll get to it in a second. But I did read some of the excerpts from the Vanessa's speech, and I'm with you on that. She could do some more speaking engagements if she wants to. And I know Michael Jordan gave some poetic words as well. I read a couple of quotes from him as well. So, of course, if Kobe was still alive, of course, he would have gave a great speech in his own right, obviously. But I think he would have been proud of both Mr. Jordan and his wife,
Yeah.
Vanessa, speaking in his honor.
Also, too, you can catch those on YouTube though. So in case if you didn't miss any of the speeches, they're all on
Yes,
YouTube. So
exactly.
on their official Basketball Hall of Fame website, the official Basketball Hall of Fame page on YouTube, so you can catch all the speeches. So in case you guys missed it.
Yes. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown as we talk about the Basketball Hall of Fame ceremony from this past weekend for induction of the 2020 class. Now, before we move over to next year's class, which uh, will be inducted into the Hall of Fame later on this summer, I want to ask you a question, Lakina, going back to Tim Duncan. Do you
Mhm.
believe that he's one of the top power forwards to ever play the game?
I think so. I think
Okay.
look, he played inside. He also made some
I think
great
so too, by the way.
outside shots. I think for anybody who's questioning, what he's done, look, I just gave you his accomplishments. So like I don't know what more the man could have done to warrant, not be one of the top power forwards in NBA history. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
five
know what more.
championships too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. In three different decades, as we just said, only
Yeah.
John Sally can, also has that distinction. So I think people need to kind of get off their high horse when they say, "Oh, he's not one of the best point, power forwards." Yes, he did. I mean, he could play he did what he was supposed to. He played inside. He
Hmm.
actually also had some, he actually did pretty good outside too. So I think people need to kind of
Hmm.
give him, his props for doing both inside and out. So yeah, look, he had 3,000 blocks, which is like one of the tops in history. No, a lot of players couldn't have done that. So I think that Tim Duncan doesn't get his due. Is it because that he doesn't have like the flamboyant personality that we see with today's players? I think that's where all this is coming
Hmm.
from. But look, the man should get his props. Come on now, you guys need to kind of chill on that.
You know who was Tim Duncan before Tim Duncan, especially for our younger viewers and listeners? Brad
Tell
Doherty.
exactly.
Brad
I was just
Doherty.
thinking that.
There was some of the same criticisms that Tim Duncan faced coming out of Wake Forest. Brad Doherty, he was part of the '86 draft, if I'm not mistaken, '86 or
Mhm.
'87. You can look that up, Lakina. But when Brad Doherty was drafted out North
86. It was
'86,
86.
okay,
Yep.
okay, yeah, I was right the first time. In the '86 draft, people said that he was soft and he wouldn't. I know the game was much different back then, but he was soft that he would never amount to anything. He's going to be a bust. Of course, that back injury cut his career short, unfortunately, as we got to the mid '90s, and so he was forced to retire. But during his short tenure NBA career, Brad Doherty was the stuff. I'm keeping
Mhm.
the language clean here, folks.
Mhm.
But he was, I believe, a 3-time or 4-time All-Star,
Mhm.
and he was part of that resurgence of the Cleveland Cavaliers in the late '80s into the early '90s. I know he missed, I believe, the '91 season due to I forgot what the injury was, but that Cavaliers team, they were starting to get older. They came back in '92, of course, lost to Jordan and the Bulls in the conference finals there. But those Cleveland teams were competitive teams with him. Mark Price, Larry Nance, of course, Hall of Fame coach Lenny Wilkes led that young squad. Of course, you had Craig Elo there as well as part of that core. You have Ron Harper before he injured his knee and eventually traded him to the Clippers following the 1990 season. But those Cleveland Cavaliers teams were tough. They were young. They were good. And Brad Doherty was the center of that. So he was Tim Duncan before Tim Duncan. Unfortunately, like I said, injuries cut his career short, but Brad Doherty could control the paint.
Yeah, and I think that's what people need to forget. Maybe do some research there, folks, because I think because of the fact that he probably could have had the same career that Duncan had not been for the
Hmm.
back injury. So, I think he definitely good call, Sid. I think he's definitely like one of those guys that probably could have had a Tim Duncan like career. So. To think that Duncan should get more of his due, I think, in that respect. I mean, please respect Tim Duncan. And that's all I want to say about that.
Yes. Let's move on to the 2021 class. They'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame coming up in the late summer, early fall.
September
Here's the
11th.
okay,
September
yeah,
11th. Yeah, that's the
yeah,
ceremony. Yep.
yeah. So here's the new class for the 2021 Basketball Hall of Fame. Head coach Rick Adelman, players Chris Bosh, Yolanda Griffith, Lauren Jackson, Paul Pierce, Bill Russell as coach. Once again, as coach. Ben Wallace, Chris Webber finally had been being left at the doorstep in all these years. He finally gets his due. And of course, current Villanova College head coach Jay Wright. From the Veterans Committee, Bob Dandridge. From the Women's Veterans Committee, Miss Pearl Moore. For the International Committee, Toni Kukoc. That's right, we said it, Toni Kukoc. And the early African American pioneers, Clarence Jenkins, and contributors Val Ackerman, the late Calvin Fitzsimmons, and Howard Garfinkel.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
I know. Yeah, yeah.
You had a little rant towards some Bulls fans regarding one Mr. Toni Kukoc. Congratulations to all the the nominees that are going in this coming fall for the 2021 class for the Basketball Hall of Fame. Congrats to Toni Kukoc, since we are here in Chicago, and he's going to get his just due along with everybody else on September 11th. He had a little rant towards some Bulls fans that didn't like that choice and or didn't understand it. I'll let you have the floor.
Well, I'll get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to say, give shout outs to guys like Rick Adelman, who I feel like those late 80s, early 90s Portland teams never got their due. I think, look, you had the Lakers teams that got older, some injuries and with Magic and they
were right before the '93 Suns with Charles Barkley.
Yeah, so there was sort of like the sandwich, sort of like that gap between them and those Phoenix teams I just mentioned. So I'm glad Rick Allen is finally getting his props. Clyde Drexler was already in, so that's also shout out to him. Shout out to Jay Wright too. He has 2 championships. Has one of like the top current win percentage in all of college basketball. Convertible end up winning his 3rd. I'm sure his once we start getting into the college hoop season once again, but for next season. But I think he very well could win his 3rd one. I'm just saying. But also too, Bill Russell, he got it as a player in 1975. So I know for people who say, wait, didn't he already get it? No, he's getting it because of his pioneering as a head coach. He won 2 championships as a head coach. People forget that. He was actually a player's coach for the first one that he won as a coach.
In 1969, yep.
Yep, so people forget that. Yolanda Griffith, Chi-Town girl, finally getting her due into the Hall of Fame. One of the best, female players back. She's about our age, so I think just amazing what she accomplished. 7-time WNBA All-Star, 2-time gold medalist. Also, Lauren Jackson, Australian-born, 2-time champion, won with the Seattle Storm and Sue Bird a couple of years ago, a 3-time MVP. Also, you mentioned some of the contributors. Val Ackerman, who was a first commissioner for the WNBA, is now the Big East commissioner, doing a great job there. Clarence Fats Jenkins, who, like you said, is one of the pioneers. He was a captain of the legendary New York Rens, 8-time colored basketball world champion in the 20s and 30s. Remember, folks, back then, people forget that Black players were not allowed to play in the NBA, in professional basketball. I'll leave that alone, but, that's a great that, he and others like Cora Moore, also, something similar, one of the first Black coaches, female coaches. So, accomplishments as well. So congrats to them. The Toni Kukoc thing, I mean, we do this every year, Sid. It seems like people forget that it is the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the Pro Basketball or NBA Hall of Fame. No, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. Think about what Kukoc did before he got there. I think he won, like world championships or FIBA championships. I think in Croatia. I think he won the scoring title like 4 or 5 times. I don't want to diminish his accomplishments, but he did a lot before he got here. So for people to say that he doesn't deserve to get in, well, actually, yes, he does. I mean, of course, we have that about Paul Pierce, a 10-time All-Star, won Finals MVP, and of course, the NBA champion. Ben Wallace and what he did, coming out of a small D2 school, was able to, all that he accomplished. Of course, Chris Webber in the Fab Five. And also, too, Chris Bosh, finally getting his due into the Hall of Fame, everything he accomplished, winning 2 championships and a gold medal. But I think, look, people, you're going to get your accomplishments, your college accomplishments, your international accomplishments, and your NBA accomplishments. That's the criteria. And also on the women's side, you got the WNBA and the women's college basketball and the contributors, too. So for people to say that, well, Toni Kukoc deserves to get in, yes, he does. Look at his record. Look at his stats, folks, in his resume. He deserves it.
Yeah. I know we did a show a couple months ago called the Chicago Sports Pardons, and I gave my pardon to Jerry Krause. I'm not going to rip him to shreds too much anymore. You have to give the late Jerry Krause, who's in the Hall of Fame, by the way, his props. Remember, he drafted Toni Kukoc in the 1990 draft, and he chased him around for about 2 or 3 years, of course. Kukoc made his debut for the 93-94 season. That's the year that Michael Jordan quit. But like you mentioned before, Toni Kukoc, and he said it in the Last Dance documentary, that he was being paid more at the time by the European League. So that's why he didn't come over here right away. Plus, if you guys know your history, towards the starting in the early 90s, he was starting to hand out these $1 million contracts. It wasn't the $100 million contracts like you see in here today. They actually started in the late 90s into the early 2000s. But Toni Kukoc has the resume. Plus, people forget he was a silver medalist in the '92 Olympics. Of course, they
Mm-hmm.
lost to the Dream Team both times, but he played better in that silver in that gold medal game. Of course, Team Croatia still lost, but he
Mm-hmm.
held his own. So he's a silver medalist, and that's what the Basketball Hall of Fame counts your Olympic accomplishments as well. I'm sure with some younger fans, they look at his career stats. Oh, he never averaged over 20 points a game. He wasn't as dominant, and he really didn't do anything special. Shout out to our good friend Dave Watson from the
Mm-hmm.
Ball on Bulls podcast, and I saw his comments recently on the Ball on Bulls podcast right here on YouTube. And he said that Toni Kukoc is remembered, especially in those last two championship years when Dennis Rodman was coming off the bench. Toni Kukoc had some big games, especially against Utah in those NBA finals, especially in 1998. Dave said that what you saw in Dirk Nowitzki, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday soon, uh, for what you saw in Dirk Nowitzki, some of that was Toni Kukoc back in the 90s. And, of course, Toni Kukoc has the 3 championship rings, and he has the 6th Man of the Year from the 1996-72 win team season. But some of the stuff that you saw in Dirk Nowitzki's game, you saw in Toni Kukoc back in the 90s. So, and Toni Kukoc was the European Magic Johnson. That's one of the reasons why he got drafted. So, not only he could shoot the ball, he could pass the ball as well. You saw that when he was here with the Bulls.
He was Dirk before Dirk was Dirk.
Yes.
People very similar, height, he could shoot outside, he can shoot inside, he can pass. I think it's just unfortunate that folks really think that they don't want to get out of their soapbox and expand their ideas of what a great basketball player is. Toni Kukoc was that great basketball player. Not just for what he did with the Bulls, but what he did over there too. He kind of revolutionized. He helped open the door for more European players to come to the States and play in the NBA.
It was him, Delayed Draza Petrovic, Dino Raja, Vlade Divac. Thank you. There's a couple others
those were
that I'm missing, but those were the first big wave of European players to come over to the NBA during the early 90s.
Yeah, so they should definitely get props, and congrats to all of the Hall of Fame inductees for this year, and looking forward to hearing some of these speeches coming up. I can only imagine what Paul Pierce is going to say, and C-Webb will see. It was great to see on Sunday him and Jalen Rose kind of have like a mini Fab Five reunion. I'm hoping all five of them are there together.
That would be great.
They're kind of listening to what's happening over in Michigan. They're kind of like they're actually letting them back in, which is great because I think the fact that they've been
that suspension been over for almost 10 years now.
Yeah,
so
I'm about to say,
put them damn banners up at Chrysler Arena, but I'll leave it at that.
They were blackballed, so I'm glad they're bringing them back because let's remember, you guys probably would not be where you are right now. You have one of the Fab Five guys coaching your team. I think you might want to kind of put those banners up. Just saying, but congrats to everybody. Look, Ben Wallace. You saw how emotional he was. I'm sure his pitch is going to be great. Also, Chris Bosh, everything he went through. I'm sure he's going to pour his heart and soul into it. I'm sure Jay Wright's speech is going to be very funny. Bill Russell's speech is going to be just hilarious. So, I'm looking forward to hearing these speeches. And congrats to all the members of the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yes, congratulations to one and all. We're heading down the home stretch here on Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. Let's, before we get to our sports media stories from the weekend, Lakeena, I don't want to spend too much time on this, which we probably will, hopefully not, but just a couple of minutes as we talk about the Chicago Bears. They wrapped up their mini camp yesterday. They had it over the weekend, their rookie mini camp. And Justin Fields, did I say his name correctly?
Yes, he did.
Yay!
Yes,
all right. Justin Fields, the rookie quarterback that was selected in the first round from Ohio State. He made headway with the media over the weekend. Bears head coach Matt Nagy finally made his presence felt among both Chicago sports radio stations, ESPN 1000 and 670 The Score this past Monday. And listening to his comments, Lakeena, he's really excited about Justin Fields, and rightfully so. And he talked about how Mitch, they really couldn't mesh his talents with the scheme that he was trying to run at the time. And I know there's been some stories out there that gave the impression that you should have felt sorry for Matt Nagy about how things went with Mitch Trubisky. But remember, folks, this what ticked me the hell off. Remember, folks, Matt Nagy was brought here to work with Mitch Trubisky. For those of you that want to feel sorry for Matt Nagy because things didn't work out with Trubisky, that's horse crap. Matt Nagy wouldn't have taken that job if he wasn't told that he was going to work with Trubisky, okay? I know that Trubisky's rookie year, he was under the John Fox administration. John Fox was trying to make the playoffs, but his style didn't work for that roster that was being rebuilt at that time. But Matt Nagy wouldn't have taken that job if he didn't think he was going to face Mitch Trubisky, okay? Mitch Trubisky was in his second year when Matt Nagy took that job. So for anybody that wants to fall in that narrative that Matt Nagy didn't know what he was doing when he was coaching Trubisky, that's horse crap. If he was told that he was going to work with Trubisky when he got that job prior to the 2018 season. So for those of you that want to feel sorry for Matt Nagy, that things that work out Trubisky, you don't know what you're talking about. That's horse crap.
Well, and also too, remember
that's why I brought up the question for the last couple of weeks. And I gave the history of what he did last year with Nick Foles. Nick Foles, do you trust Matt Nagy to develop Justin Fields properly? Right now, I don't. And don't forget, folks, Matt Nagy's hot seat is still hot.
Well, and also to remember too that Trubisky wasn't his guy. He was already here by the time
I get that, but he was brought here to try to fix him. So that's why I don't feel sorry for Matt Nagy as far as that is concerned.
Well, now with that said, though, there are no excuses. This is a guy that he wanted. This is a guy he thinks he can develop into the next Patrick Mahomes. Let's see. We're in show me mode now. I know Bears fans are encouraged. You know, there's extra spring in their step, but there's still a lot that needs to be figured out here, folks. And I think that people look. He looks good, you know, in mini camp. I mean, again, it's mini camp. You know, rookie mini camp. I mean, you're gonna be playing.
They're wearing helmets and shirts and shorts.
Yeah, so they're not in pads yet. So let's you know look. You can be encouraged. You can be excited, but let's kind of taper off the excitement a little bit. Let's see what he does once, you know, training camp starts, once we get to see him in the preseason. Let's see what he can do. And look, I think I'm cautiously optimistic, but again, we're still going to be in the same, you know, place where we were last year. Now you have no excuses now. You got your guy, develop him. That's all there is to it. Also, too, you know, Dazz Newsome, someone should, you know, give him some great breakfast spots over in Chicago. I guess he was upset because there were no Waffle Houses up here. The wide receiver from North Carolina. I mean, like, I think someone should have told him that there are no Waffle Houses this far up north. So I know he's from Virginia originally. So, and you know, he played in North Carolina, of course. But I think people need to kind of like to tell him that there are no Waffle Houses this far. Look, we got a lot of great breakfast spots over here at Dazz. You know, if you're listening and gonna be watching this, so you know, we got a lot of great breakfast spots. So, but you know, look, maybe an endorsement to the Waffle House in your future. So look, if the Waffle House folks are watching, maybe give them an endorsement.
Google Map, folks. Google Map.
Absolutely. So okay, sports media news. All right, Sid, this is all you.
This comes to our friends from Awful Announcing, if this page can ever load up. Fox Sports is planning on working on a documentary featuring their former broadcaster and former NFL head coach in everybody's only favorite video game, John Madden. Of course, Madden was one of the first pioneers, one of the first announcers that was hired for the NFL on Fox when they started back in 1994. Him and Summerall were the number one team from 1994 to the end of the 2001 season when the Patriots won the Super Bowl over the Rams, which that game was also broadcasted on Fox. I want to see how how Fox handles this. I think they'll handle it with class, of course, after Madden was let go. He kind of retired from Fox. Some people say he was let go, but wherever the situation was, of course, the following season, he was hired by Monday Night Football, and of course, he worked there until 2006. And he was then hired for Sunday Night Football, which he retired following the 2009 season when the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Arizona Cardinals in that Super Bowl down in Tampa. People our age and older remember him as a broadcaster. If you looked at some of those programs, which I did growing up from NFL films, you knew his history as a NFL head coach. He won a Super Bowl with the old Oakland Raiders back in the 70s. But I think people, younger than us, especially with the kids, teenagers, and 20-year-olds coming up today, you just know him as the face of Madden NFL video games. And I think hopefully Fox, and I think they will tell the whole story of John Madden, not just him as the video game guy or as just as a broadcaster, but tell the stories of him as an NFL head coach as well. I don't know if you got a chance to check out NFL Network's Football Life. If you didn't, I think you can catch it right here on YouTube. They did an episode featuring John Madden a few years ago, and they had celebrities like Ice Cube and others, NFL stars. They talked. I think they did a decent job of going around of the whole introspective of his career, not just as a broadcaster, but as a coach. And then, of course, they brought up the video games. They brought that up as well. They didn't focus too much on that, but I think they did a decent job as far as bringing up the whole introspective of his career. And so I'm interested to see what Fox does. We'll know in the coming weeks when that documentary will be shown. But I'm interested to see what Fox does here because he was one of the original guys hired to do games when the Fox Sports premiered with football in 1994.
Yeah, Tom Ronald is going to be doing going to be narrating it. So I'm sure he's going to do, he'll make sure that they do right by Madden and everything else. I mean, he's not in the best of health right now, but look, he's still with us, which is great. And hopefully we'll get to maybe share his stories through his own words, because I think that it is only fitting that it's only fair that we get to hear those stories tell it from his eyes and through his words. So I'm sure he's gonna share some great stories. Both him when he was coaching, won a Super Bowl, to his long illustrious career calling games, with Pat Summerall, also to God rest his soul, also to Al Michaels. He did it for about a decade before he went back to Fox. So I'm looking forward to see how I'm sure Fox is going to produce it. I'm sure Tom Rinaldi is going to be narrating it. So I'm sure they'll do right by him. I'm sure he and his family will kind of have a lot to do with developing this doc. So I'm going to go on a limb and say it's going to be pretty good. I think they'll do right by him.
I think and I hope that you're correct, and they just tell everything. And I just hope as well that our younger listeners and viewers, they get the whole introspective of John Madden's career. He's not just known as putting the face on a popular football video game, but he also did some great things before the development of the video game came about some 25 plus years ago.
I'm sure they'll cover all of that. I'm sure that way younger people will see that. Look, he was actually was a pioneer in football, and both as a coach and as a broadcaster. So I'm hoping that younger people will learn about his life and what all the accomplishments he has had.
Yeah, I know this is a dumb question, but I think he's in a Pro Football Hall of Fame, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I thought so. Yeah.
So,
sorry,
yes.
This is a part of the program that my brain runs at 1,000 miles per hour. So I just had to slow down a little bit. Also, too, Lakeena, speaking of the Basketball Hall of Fame, Kevin Garnett will get a documentary. It will premiere on July 30th. It will premiere on Showtime called Anything's Possible. I'm really looking forward to that one.
And for what I've read, he had a lot to do with the development of this doc. So I have no doubt that he's going to make sure that they do it right. And look, I think, that say that he did after the Celtics won that championship, where he finally got his championship. I think when he did that interview with Michelle Tafoya and said, "Look, anything's possible." I think it's only fitting that he came from South Carolina, moved up here to Chicago for the last couple of years, and. In high school to, going straight to the NBA and helping develop the Timberwolves, and, went to Boston, is up, winning the title. So I think his journey has, is very, interesting. And I'm sure we're going to find out some other interesting things that we never knew about him. So he said, look, no one will be, you guys will not be disappointed. So, and hopefully, I'm sure we won't be. I can't wait I'll definitely be DVRing that particular
on
Showtime.
Yeah, shout out to Showtime Sports. They've been stepping up with their documentaries in general, but particularly on the sports side with Ron Artest, the late Lawrence Phillips. They had the Notre Dame football documentary in there. They had the Baylor basketball murder situation. They did a documentary on that. I still don't trust that head coach. Liar. Go look at the documentary yourself, and you know why. But they've been stepping up over the last couple years with their documentaries. So shout out to Showtime Sports.
Some great docs, and they're on YouTube. They're on their on demand, and they're streaming. So if you haven't watched them, you can definitely check it out. So definitely, definitely worth checking out. Let's see some other media news. Chris Webber, who just got elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame, but also too is no longer has a job with Turner. His contract was not renewed. He actually will not be participating in the NBA playoffs. So what do you think about that? I know some people kind of had like a love-hate relationship with C-Web doing television. So I just want to
including our guy Tony Gill. We should bring him on and he'll rant about that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure. Look, I'm sure he was probably already having a party about that. So what do you think about that news?
I'm not gonna say I was shocked by it. I know if you read into the stories, he was upset. Turner was upset that Weber gave him the notice in the last minute that he wasn't gonna do the college basketball tournament March Madness this year. So that kind of set Turner back, and I'm sure that was the final nail in the coffin. But if Chris Webber wants to do broadcasting again, I'm sure he's gonna find somewhere else. Will ESPN bring him along with Jalen Rose? This business is crazy. You never know. I'm not gonna put throw dirt on it, but you never know. Will Chris go over to Fox Sports? Who knows? Will the Sacramento Kings hire him to do their games with Doug Christie and Mark Jones? Who knows? So he has options if he still wants to do it again. But we shall see. We all know, Lakeena, that this business is crazy. So we'll see what happens with Mr. Webber going forward if he should continue his broadcasting career. He was with Turner for 12, 13 years. I know no one expected him to be there that long, but he did a heck of a job, according to his bosses, up to this year.
Yeah, so definitely we'll see where the future goes for him when it comes to broadcasting. Also, too, one of the legendary broadcasters will be retiring after the end of the season. Marv Albert, it was announced over the weekend that he is going to be retiring. I'm sure Turner's going to have, a nice little, tribute to him once they're done with their broadcast for the season. But look, I know how some people feel about it. There was some stuff that came out in the late 90s that maybe if it came out now, we probably would never have seen him anymore. But he was able to kind of get off the spotlight for about a year and a half. Got a new career, like a new, like a rejuvenated career, sort of a comeback, if you will, for Turner. So look, I think regardless of how you feel about that, I mean, he had a really great career, like almost 50, almost 60-year career, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, he was the soundtrack to our lives, looking especially during those Bulls championship runs in the 90s when ABC got the network package from CBS prior to the 1991 season. Of course, many people thought he was the announcer for the Bulls when those games were on NBC, along with Mike Fratello during the first 3 years for the Bulls. Of course, Marv worked with Matt Gukers and Bill Walton and Doug Collins during the last Bulls championship run there in the late 90s, with the exception of the 98 season, which was handled by Bob Costas. We won't get into that, but like you say, he had a great career. After that scandal, you guys look that up for yourselves. We won't discuss it here. But Marv Albert did the Knicks from '67 to 2004. He did the Brooklyn Nets now, but he did the New Jersey Nets game for a few years in the mid-2000s there, sharing the play-by-play duties with Ian Eagle. And, of course, he was doing Turner. He also did the first few years of the March Madness tournaments when they premiered on Turner back in 2011. So this guy had a great career. He also did NFL football for Westwood One and the NFL on NBC when they were still doing Sunday afternoon games at the time. So he had a long career. Salute to Mr. Albert. We gave a little tribute in our last episode. He was a soundtrack to our lives, and he will be missed, but congratulations to Mr. Albert on a great career.
And, he should definitely get commended and applauded for all the career that he had. Like I said before, we talked about this. We talked about the scandal. We talked about, that if there was a different time, then maybe we probably would never see it anymore. But like I said, he was able to kind of rehab his image and, have a nice comeback. He also did on the NFL on CBS for when they first got the coverage back. So
good. Yeah. Good call. Yeah.
So, so definitely call all types of sports, and he should definitely, I'm sure Turner's going to do it and have a nice little salute to him once they're done with their their
And he also
coverage.
handled the baseball coverage for
Yes, he did.
the old MLB on NBC
Yes, he
before
did.
they went off the air in '89. Yeah.
Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you. Another good call. See, we got each other's back. See, when it comes to that. So.
And we are not using the Google machine, folks.
No, we're not. All memory. Look, we're
Facts.
a little bit older, but yeah, but we still got a little bit of memory left in them.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so a salute to a great career, and also he should definitely be applauded. I loved his chemistry with Mike Fratello during those Bulls in those '90s. You know, when the NBA was sort of like mega popular on NBC. So definitely a nice salute to him and a great Hall of Fame career.
Yes.
All right,
Lakeena, wrap it up.
Couple of shout outs real quick. Those shout outs to Sam Houston State Bearcats with a K at the cover of cast. They won the FCS title, beating South Dakota State, which ended up being a really good game too. So they played in Frisco, Texas. They had to wait about an hour because of some weather. Severe weather had hit the Texas in that area in Frisco, Texas. But it turned out it was a great game. And Isaiah Davis, had 3 touchdown runs and a losing cost for the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State. So it's going to be a little bit of an undertaking for them because they got to come right back and and play again later in the fall. So we'll see. Give the guys a chance to heal. Also, Kyler Keeler too, who joined Jim Tressel as just the second coach to win SCS titles with 2 schools. So also congrats to everybody on the team. Also, too, there will be no Triple Crown winner this year. Sorry, guys. I'm sure. Look, I'm sure. Like deep down, I think they're happy about that. All of a sudden that came out about D Wade Lucas, but Wambauer wins. Just edging out Medina Spirit to win the Preakness this past Saturday. Also, to Mike W. McCarthy. This is his first Triple Crown race win as a trainer. He has a couple of Breeders' Cup. This is his first Triple Crown race win. Been close a couple of times, so he should, been around for a long time. He's actually, unlike Bob Baffer, he's actually very well liked. So, I'm sure people were very happy when, his horse won. So a couple of shouts to them and, as a great and busy weekend in sports.
All right, take us home.
All right, you follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Excuse me. You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube at War Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos will drop every Monday and every Friday right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Podcast version will drop every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. Once again, the audio version every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. Just type in that search engine box on all podcast platforms, WARR on Anchor. And you can go to weareregalradio.com. And last but definitely not least, you can follow us on all social media platforms, including right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As our good friend George Hoffman always says, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.
And as we kiss more kisses and take a bow, thank you for your support. And subscribe. So for Sid on Lakeena, I know it's going to be a little bit warmer for after next few days. So, but please be safe out there and wear your mask if you're not going to get vaccinated. If you're going to get vaccinated, still be safe though, nonetheless. So for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you this weekend.
Don't forget, our next episode we'll have our NBA playoff preview show with some exciting guests and analysts. Until then, till next time, holla!